Wamenipatia mimi ile armband ile ya captain.
Raila Amolo Odinga is an epitome of democracy in this country.
In the ever-evolving landscape of Kenyan politics, few names command as much deep respect and controversy as Raila Odinga.
Raila Amolo Odinga Tosha!
There was an element of surprise that Kenyans were ready to embrace him to that point and to that level, especially after the Pentagon embraced him.
A statesman, a reformist, and a political enigma.
We think that we will arrive at an acceptable solution.
Hatukubali lakini tunaheshimu. Tunaheshimu.
For more than 30 years in Kenyan politics, he stands as a colossus, a towering figure whose influence has left an indelible mark on the nation's political scene.
He simply stood up, walked into his car, went away.
His Nigerian biographer, Babafemi Badejo, described him as a puzzle in Kenya's political landscape. His Luo community shares this sentiment, dubbing him Agwambo. A figure of unpredictable nature that remains difficult to decipher. To them, he is enigmatic, formidable, and almost mythical, much like the legendary 18th century sorcerer, Gor Mahia.
Vijana mko tayari? Mko tayari?
True to his depiction, the one certainty about Raila Amolo Odinga is his unpredictability.
I am sure even Ruto is just crossing his fingers.
Tumesema mpaka Kenya inuke.
His defining trait is an unyielding resilience. No matter the odds, he refuses to be counted out.
A political daredevil, he masterfully executes complex maneuvers at the very brink of collapse, defying expectations and reinventing himself just when a dramatic downfall seems inevitable.
NASA is a movement for the liberation of the people of Kenya from political oppression, from economic backwardness.
Born in 1945, Raila Odinga was destined for politics.
Tunataka kubadilisha Kenya.
He recently marked his 80th birthday with an impressive 55 years spent navigating the turbulent waters of Kenyan politics.
Raila has established a political enterprise that is unmatchable in this country, Enoch.
His journey traces back to October 1969, when his father's detention under Jomo Kenyatta's government abruptly propelled him into high-stakes decision-making at the tender age of 24.
Raila has long emerged from his father's shadow, carving out his own path with conviction. A leader in his own right, he independently makes his decisions and boldly guides his supporters.
Wakenya wamesema wanataka mambo ambayo imeenda tenge ibadilishwe.
I will shake the hand of my rivals and pay the political price if I have to. I will shake their hand if I win, and I will shake their hand if I don't.
If you look at Raila Odinga's accolades and the resilience, if you trace Raila's history from 1970s, you will always trace Raila's name and presence in Kenyan struggle for democratic space.
On the political battlefield, his influence is undeniable, commanding a following that few in Kenya or even across Africa can rival.
Because I love Kenya more than I love Raila Amolo Odinga.
The son of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, Kenya's first vice president, he was exposed early to the struggles of leadership and opposition. But his path will not be easy.
From a young age, Raila exhibited exceptional sharpness that set him apart, naturally positioning himself as a commanding force among the Odinga siblings. His quick wit and assertive nature often saw him outmaneuvering his older brother, effortlessly stepping into the role of family captain.
His instinct for leadership extended beyond the household, shaping his national political journey. Wherever he goes, he strives to lead, and more often than not, he succeeds. In the 1980s, Raila's defiant stance against Daniel Arap Moi's one-party state led to his arrest and detention without trial for nearly a decade. His experiences in the dungeons of Nyayo House fueled his commitment to multi-party democracy. In the wake of the infamous August 1982 coup attempt, Raila Odinga found himself accused of involvement, facing treason charges and enduring 6 years of detention under President Moi's regime. A 2006 biography published as Raila prepared for his 2007 presidential bid suggested that his role in the failed uprising was more significant than he had publicly acknowledged.
Raila Odinga became so synonymous with the so-called Kenya's second liberation.
His journey was marked by imprisonment for treason between 1982 and 1988, a period when the struggle for political change was at its height.
And there were many people involved, lawyers, engineers, church people of all denominations, and politicians.
We were ready to challenge the government because we had seen dictatorships collapse in the Soviet Union.
Though released in June 1989, he found himself back behind bars in July 1990 alongside Kenneth Matiba and Charles Rubia for demanding the reintroduction of multi-party democracy.
The moment Matiba announced that the meeting at Kamukunji will go on with or without a license, we became marked and they started following us.
In my offices, you know, because I used to I used to have a legal practice. I'll be working and a policeman is standing in my office or sitting at the door, you know, grabbed a chair and sat at the door, not talking, just telling you continue with your work. And they stood there watching every little movement that one was making. So it was not an easy time.
I was arrested on the 4th, I think the same day that Matiba was arrested. I had gone to State House Primary School to pick my children, and I noticed the cars that were following. There was, standard 1, I think, and 2. And I remember me telling them I jotted down the number plates of the cars that was following me. And I was living in Gomo Estate. I told them that mark those cars, because and if we don't get home, whoever it is, just give them the details of the car, that because I was sure I was going to be arrested. So I drove with these people following me to Gumo Estate. They surrounded the estate. It was not my first arrest. It must have been the 10th, 15th. So I had this sweater always at the ready, when just in case they come. So I wore it, and I opened the door, and when they saw me, of course, they were very angry. So they threw me in the back of a Peugeot 504, and as I drove off, they stopped on the road and really beat me up. They were very angry because I had kept them, I had hidden, and had got all this media, that had recorded my arrest. So they really beat me up, and then took me to Nairobi area, traffic headquarters. I never knew there were cells there, but below there are cells, and that's when I learned that Matiba had been there.
I understood I was at committee, that I knew I was at committee prison, but I did not know where Matiba was. We were kept ignorant, and it's what they call, you are excommunicated completely, you are in darkness. You don't even know what day it is. What called solitary confinement is very dangerous, punishing you mentally. You even lose time.
But around midnight, I would say between midnight and 1 a.m., I was put in a Volkswagen Kombi, a blue one. They opened, and then you are told to lie, behind the driver, along in the middle, but on the floor. And of course, they would go stepping and singing, and taunting you. And the ones who carried me was singing this song, Kanyaga, Inchi, really by the time they did the rounds, I didn't know which rounds. I had almost passed out, and I was bleeding. But eventually we stopped. Of course, at that time I was blindfolded, and I was completely prepared for death, because I couldn't see another possibility of the kind of beatings you received, including on the head. I thought they were definitely not going to release me. So I came to terms, and I started thinking about death, and I thought about death many times during that time, because I'd been in prison for more than 2 years before, and I'd read books on how to prepare for detention.
Tumejumuika, tuko watu wa kutosha, tutaenda Uhuru Park sasa vile ilitangazwa.
We decided that we had to go Kamkunji. First of all, to give people courage, because at that time, to appear in a rally which had been declared illegal, and with that kind of security detail mounted to ensure that people don't take part in the meeting, we were sure, that a lot of leaders will not turn up, or many people will not turn up. But yet, out there, people were clamoring they'd come out. Tear gas was being thrown and hurled everywhere. So we said, we cannot let the people down. And we said, okay, well, let's get into this pickup. And as we went, because we know the grounds at the Kamkunji had been occupied by the police. So as we went through the Kaloleni, Bama, Majengo, California area, we said, we must see the people, show the people that we had actually gotten into the area, if not to Kamkunji itself. But all of us knew we were going to be arrested. We were sure we were going to end up in a prison or a police cell.
Many people died. Prisons had new inmates. The court had new clans to be tried and jailed hastily by willing judges. Foreign missions had new applications from asylum seekers keen to escape and live to fight another day. Upon his release in June 1991, fearing for his safety, he sought refuge in Norway. The flame of liberation was lit, and Moi and Kanu realized that change was inevitable.
Moi called a conference at KICC. He called it KANU National Conference to decide on the constitution. Right? Any other field day. So he allowed them to speak. A very clever man. He allowed people to ventilate. What do you think? Should we change? Should we not change? He allowed them to ventilate. So he listened to everybody. He now said, I have heard you. I now also want to make my own statement.
A day before the day, Franklin Bate, then Moi's most trusted Deputy State House Controller, was given a delicate duty to perform. He was asked to prepare 2 speeches, one outlining the importance of retaining Section 2A in the Constitution, and another calling for its immediate repeal to allow multi-party politics. It was a secret that only Bate and President Moi knew.
Then he told me, because I was sitting behind there, he told me, give me my speech. Then I told him, you know, you have got 2. He said, the one which he's saying, we repeal 2A. He read his speech, the first pages. When he now reached that one, he now said, mimi, yale ambao ninayaona mbele ni kali kuliko tunayoona hapa. So lazima tujiokoe kwa yale ambayo yanatukujia. Lazima tujiweke kwa njia ambayo haitadhuru watoto wetu na haitaharibu uhusiano wetu na marafiki zetu za ulimwengu.
In February 1992, Raila made a bold return to Kenya and aligned himself with the Forum for the Restoration of Democracy, FORD, the party led by his father, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, and Kenneth Njindo Matiba. However, later that year, internal divisions and interference from the ruling KANU party fractured FORD into 2 factions. FORD Kenya under Jaramogi and FORD Asili under Matiba.
They began with us in the Young Turks movement because you remember after the elections, after the breakup of the 2 FORDs, with FORD Kenya, FORD Asili, Jaramogi leading FORD Kenya, we had that historic meeting at City Stadium where Paul Mwita became the first vice chairman and Wamalo Kijana the second vice chairman. I became the secretary general, and that was the beginning of the of the divisions, because there was among our group who felt that because of the advanced age of Jaramogi, if he didn't make it to the presidency because of age, then the seat would again fall to Kikuyu, and they were not prepared for that. They will say all sorts of things, but that was the truth. They fought very hard to ensure that Jaramogi would not be succeeded by Kikuyu in FORD Kenya. So they engineered the removal for Paul Mwite, my own removal, because at that time Raila was supporting Munywa Wayaki to become Secretary General because he had a longer history of relationship with the family. And that was the beginning, actually. The breakup began on the very first day. And there was a feeling that because FORD Asili is led by a Kikuyu, we shouldn't allow a possibility where the other FORD is also led by a Kikuyu. And that was the beginning of the end of the 2 FORDs, unfortunately. And Moi saw it. And he exploited it to the maximum.
Kenneth Matiba is out in London for some medical treatment. And he's coming back. And the man who is leading FORD is Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Jaramogi Odinga is slightly older than Kenneth Matiba. So you put into the head of Kenneth Matiba that it is time for Jaramogi Oginga Odinga to go where? Go home. So when he's coming, I'm younger and he is old and he has had his time. He needs to go away. So that's what was done. Kenneth Matiba was given that impression just by some statements.
And secondly, you know, they told him that, you know, if he did not take his chance, then Mwai Kibaki was going to eclipse him. Matiba was taken in, but not absolutely, until the day when he came back.
Absolutely no hesitation in saying that the day Mwai Kibaki formed the Democratic Party is a day that any democratic transition resulting in the leadership of any of us who was in that early stage of second liberation was taken away. Because I remember very well, we had gone with Paul Mwita to London to talk to Matiba while he was then recovering. And after great persuasion, Matiba had actually agreed to stand down for Jaramogi. And then out of the blue came this announcement from somebody Matiba called General Kigwaya, announcing the formation of DP. And this got Matiba so annoyed. He said, if Kibaki is standing, I am going to run for president. And it was single-minded.
And then when he came, he had a very good reception at the airport, our president. The first thing he did when he now landed in Ford was a big quarrel with Jaramogi Odinga.
And that was the end of it.
Because it was entered into him that you are also able to be the president. It was done deliberately by some people away, Ford. So he got into it. He got into the trap. And that trap caused a split in Ford.
Ford Asilis Kenneth Matiba, Ford Kenya's Odinga. Mwai Kibaki of DP would lose the presidential contest to KANU's Daniel Arap Moi. In February 1994, Kenya mourned the passing of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, the towering statesman and leader of the Ford Kenya party. But even as the nation bid him farewell, a fierce political battle was already brewing within his party.
Malo Kijana is no longer chairman of Ford Kenya.
Among those left behind was his son, Raila Odinga, who believed he was the rightful heir to his father's political legacy. But the path to leadership was anything but clear. Standing in his way was a formidable alliance. Michael Kijana Wamalwa, then one of Jaramogi's two deputy party chairmen, had his own claim to the leadership. By his side were some of the most influential young reformists of the time: Paul Mwite, James Orengo, Anyang' Nyong'o, John Captain, Mahisa Kitui, and Gitobu Imanyara, a group collectively known as the Young Turks.
The battle lines were drawn. Raila was determined, but the forces against him were equally resolute.
Many people saw that as tribalism. As Raila feeling the Ford Kenya party was a Luo party, saw it as a family property that he was going to inherit. But I don't think that is the case. You know, Raila, especially at that time, was restless. He had spent all his time fighting government and paying for it and detention and all that. He wanted to see things moving.
The election of Jaramogi's successor at Thika Municipal Stadium gave Wamala Kijana a decisive win over Raila Odinga. But the celebration was short-lived.
Instantly, mayhem engulfed the stadium. A storm of fury raged among Raila's supporters, turning the arena into a battleground.
Defeated? Never. Raila Odinga was only getting started. Those who thought he had been outmaneuvered were in for a shock.
The time has come to change course.
In a bold move he resigned from Ford Kenya and relinquished his seat in Lang'ata, a high-stakes gamble. But Raila was no stranger to risk.
Then, in a stunning twist, he took over the little-known National Development Party, NDP, declaring himself its leader. With the odds stacked against him, he reclaimed his parliamentary seat in Lang'ata. The comeback was complete. The son of the bull was rising, and nothing would stand in his way. He crushed obstacles, humbled rivals, and turned enemies into allies, and allies into enemies. But there was one final mission. Owning a party and winning back Lang'ata were just the beginning. At this juncture, Raila set his sights on something bigger, the soul of the Luo people. When Jaramogi Oginga Odinga took his final bow, the Luo people were left searching for a voice, a champion, a new folk hero to carry their dreams. The battle for his succession was not fought with swords, but in the arenas of intellect, rhetoric, and raw charisma. On one side stood the scholars, James Orengo, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, men of letters, polished and urbane. They spoke the language of diplomacy, their words sculpted by academia, their mannerisms refined by intellectual rigor.
Raila Amolo Odinga.
But the Luo political soul is not stirred by eloquence alone. It demands more than mastery of English, fine dressing, and sophisticated taste. To lead the people, one must not only speak, but act, inspire, and move.
Lazima tufunge barabara. Kama baba amesema tufunge, tutafunga. Kama amesema tufanye kazi, tutafanya.
In the court of public opinion, the battle was over before it even began. For the Luo, a leader is not chosen by the stroke of a pen, but by the roar of the masses. And in Raila Odinga, they found their warrior, their champion, their next great folk hero. It was in 1997. A political storm was brewing in Kisumu Rural. Anyang' Nyong'o, flying the flag of the Social Democratic Party, was up against a formidable opponent, Job Omino, a close ally of Raila Odinga. The verdict from the ballot? A bitter loss. But politics, as they say, is a game of resilience. Nyong'o's party had just enough seats to secure him a lifeline, a nomination to parliament, a temporary setback, but a lesson learned. By 2002, the writing was on the wall. Nyong'o had seen the tides shift. Raila Odinga was on the move, rallying forces under his new political home. Nyong'o made his move, abandoning SDP and stepping into Odinga's camp, a strategic realignment. But not everyone followed the wind. One man remained defiant, James Orengo. While others coalesced around Odinga, Orengo took a different path, contesting the Ugenya seat under the National Social Congress and even making an audacious bid for the presidency.
Kibaki may emerge on the basis of consensus, but Uhuru is emerging in a background, and an unfortunate background of a very acrimonious political process in which his friends and foes within KANU and outside KANU are saying he has been imposed.
Both gambits ended in defeat. Time, however, has a way of softening even the most unyielding of spirits. In the years that followed, Orengo, once a fierce rival, would eventually bow to political reality. Not only did he rejoin Odinga, but he became one of his most loyal disciples, standing by his side through Kenya's most turbulent political battles.
We are not intimidated, and from here we are all going to march into town in the normal way we have done. We have notified the police about this demonstration.
In the late 1990s, Raila Odinga emerged as a formidable force. First contesting the presidency in 1997, his political maneuvers saw him align and break alliances. The 1997 presidential election had ended, but the battle was far from over. Defeated at the ballot, the opposition was determined not to lose the war. 5 political heavyweights, Mwai Kibaki, Michael Wamalwa, Charity Ngilu, Wangari Maathai and Raila Odinga joined forces under one banner, the Opposition Alliance. Their mission: challenge President Moi's legitimacy.
Almost every single party has had no reservation whatsoever regarding the need for us to get rid of Moi.
But Moi was a seasoned political chess master. Armed with judges and lawyers eager to please him and the weight of incumbency, he maneuvered past their protests. With no legal path left, the opposition settled on a different strategy: unity. A powerful, unwavering front to challenge KANU's grip on power.
But behind closed doors, not all was as it seemed. Even as opposition leaders charted a new course together, one of their own was already in secret talks with Moi.
Raila Odinga, ever the strategist, was forging a separate path. And then whispers turned into headlines. The country woke up to a new phrase: cooperation, a mysterious political union between Moi's KANU and Odinga's NDP. Some were shocked, others saw it coming. What began as cautious cooperation blossomed into a full-fledged political union, an unprecedented merger. New KANU was born. With this alliance, Odinga found himself at the heart of power, securing not only a cabinet position in Moi's government, but also the influential role of Secretary General within KANU. Moi had ruthlessly dumped the ever-loyal JJ Kamotho. It was a move that reshaped Kenya's political landscape, aligning former rivals in a partnership that few had anticipated.
Even overseas things that Moi would like to cling to power. Nataka kutangazia nyinyi kwamba wakati wa kustaafu kwangu umefika baada ya uchaguzi huu.
As Kenya braced for a transition, many KANU prominent politicians, among them Professor George Saitoti, Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, and Raila Odinga, were tussling to succeed the retiring head of state. But Moi had his choice clear. Uhuru Kenyatta was to be his successor.
That this whole movement is intended to sideline Raila and to consign the Luo again to the periphery of politics in Kenya.
I think I was prepared to play, as I've said many, many times in the past, any role that I would be offered either by my party or by Kenyans.
I don't think he had in his mind that he was going to give it to Raila. I don't think he had. Neither do I think he had in his mind that he was going to give it to Saitoti. No. I think he had formed up his mind that my candidate for Kano is Uhuru Kenyatta.
It was a plan that was...
I think that was already in his mind. He has already set it up completely.
Because when you look at Uhuru's elevation,
yeah,
it was like a crash program.
Yes. So they should have known that this guy is planning something else.
They didn't see it.
They didn't see it. They never saw it.
But Raila Odinga had other plans.
Itakuwa ni kitendo cha usalata mkubwa kwetu kama viongozi kuenda Kasarani kule tukiwa kama tunajua matokeo ya Kasarani tayari yanajulikana.
Defying Moi, Odinga led a mass exodus from Kano, finding refuge in the little-known Liberal Democratic Party, LDP.
But behind closed doors, he was making moves that few anticipated. On October 14th, 2002, Nyachae and Odinga struck a deal at the Serena Hotel. One of them will run for president, the other will help shape the government. But what Nyachae didn't know as he put pen to paper that day was that Odinga had already struck another deal with Mwai Kibaki. Raila Odinga walked across into Uhuru Park only to declare Mwai Kibaki as the preferred successor to Moi.
Tutapeleka mswada kwa bunge ya kuangusha serikali na kufanya uchaguzi mara moja.
With two simple words, Kibaki Tosha, he ignited a political revolution. The opposition was galvanized, transforming the National Alliance of Kenya into a formidable force, the National Rainbow Coalition, NAC.
There were also people push and pull, push and pull. He came and closed that push and pull and just made one word. And that they were unable anymore to feel, they just felt now we have to go with Kibaki.
So that statement is what galvanized the opposition?
Yes. Just that statement of his is what galvanized them to have now one agenda, one president candidate, and they moved on.
After Uhuru Park declaration, after that Uhuru Park declaration by Raila Odinga, from where you sat, were you seeing a victory for the opposition?
Yes. We saw a victory.
It was very clear.
Very clear. Very clear. But you see, what people are forgetting is that at that time, we had Wamalwa, we had Raila, we had Kibaki, Ngilu, and the others. The Kalonzos now came in really after.
I personally feel very challenged by the honor that has been bestowed on me by my colleagues, by the parties we have formed. But I even feel more challenged because I am fully aware of the job that is ahead of us.
The NAC wave surged across the nation.
Captain na naibu wake walikuwa wamepata majeraha kwenye michezo. Wameingia kwenye kiwanja kama tayari tumeshafunga bao 2 kwa yai.
With opinion polls painting a clear picture, victory was within reach.
President Kibaki's victory in racing terms would be classified as a dead certainty. If it was a horse race, it would be a dead certainty that maybe the only way it could lose would be by falling. But since that is not likely, I think it's now a one-horse race.
I wonder whether anybody after today will have any doubt in their mind that NAC will form the next government.
the change is inevitable. And I want to urge the KANU leadership to recognize that fact and to decide how it wishes to exit itself.
Ingawaji umati uliojitokeza katika uwanja huu ulikuwa wa aina yake, bila shaka upigaji kura wao ndio utakaamua hatma ya kisiasa humu nchini.
And when the ballots were counted, history was made. The opposition had done the unthinkable. KANU's reign was over. And Uhuru Kenyatta had been defeated.
Mimi Mwai Kibaki naapa kwamba nitatenda kazi zangu za urais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya kwa uaminifu.
As the new dawn took shape, President Kibaki unveiled his first cabinet. Among the key figures, Raila Odinga, the engineer turned politician, now tasked with rebuilding Kenya's infrastructure as Minister for Roads.
The dawn of a new era. The opposition had finally taken power. Raila Odinga and Mwai Kibaki stood side by side. But beneath the surface, cracks were already emerging.
Barely months into government, Raila Odinga was restless. His appointment as Minister for Roads was not enough. He wanted more. He wanted the title of Prime Minister.
The MOU was very clear, and I was in that night discussion where who will become the Prime Minister. And there was a fight between Saitoti and Raila Odinga. Yes. And it was so bad until Raila Odinga gave up and said, it's not about being a prime minister, it's about getting Moi out. And because that was the rallying call, everybody submitted to Raila Odinga being the nominee of LDP to be the prime minister. That secret deal was there. Now, the mistake we did as politicians and leaders for this country is the politics of deceit. We cheat each other.
What should have been a smooth transition into governance became a battle of egos and ambitions. Cabinet meetings grew tense. Discussions stalled.
Power got into the heads of some people, and they started behaving funny, you know, excluding others in decision making, not meeting the agreements that we had agreed on.
Backstabbing. These are the things that is haunting the country. And that's why after Kibaki was sworn in, the gates were closed. And the gates were closed by one person called Matere Kereri, the controller of State House. These are the new operators.
Nitatenda kazi zangu za urais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya.
Upon assuming the presidency in 2003, Kibaki's wing transformed and departed from the pre-election pact. Instead of the coalition figureheads, the new government acquired new power bearers, a squad drawn entirely from the Mount Kenya region. It included Kiraitu Murungi, Christopher Murungaru, Matere Kereri, David Mwiraria, and Francis Mdaura.
They disowned the promise after we delivered them. It's like you put a ladder for a monkey to go and climb and get the bananas. The minute he gets the bananas, he throws the ladder down. Yeah? So that was actually the downfall of the NARC government. That is where now the crisis started. So Raila had to swallow it because he had no choice. We tolerated it. It was infighting within government. The opposition of KANU was not felt because there was opposition within.
The dream of a new constitution hung in limbo. The death of Vice President Michael Kijana Wamalwa, just 8 months into office, left a void that amplified the divide.
But then I realized these formations that you make very close to an election, it's a very dangerous formation because people have this mistrust to each other.
That was what killed NARC. Otherwise, NARC was a wonderful dream that would have taken this country very far. I wish NARC did not die.
But Raila Odinga was not one to retreat.
This will be, yes, it will be like this.
The 2005 constitutional referendum gave him the perfect opportunity to build a new alliance.
Wamepata kiboko. Sasa matashika adabu, sio? Na sisi tuko tayari kama wanachunga kwenda nao mpaka kule katika debe. Timu ya Orange imeshinda timu ya Ndizi, sivyo? Bao 10-0.
Again, with the arrogance that the leaders had, it was just bulldoze the way they wanted it because it's government. And that's why the referendum failed.
And we beat a sitting president who fired us from government immediately after the referendum.
You were then?
Yes, I was then an assistant minister for tourism and wildlife.
And the momentum of the referendum continued beyond the referendum.
The referendum would not just be about a constitution. It will set the stage for a political storm that will shape the 2007 presidential race. As the 2007 elections loomed, the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, rallied its forces. A coalition of political heavyweights determined to challenge the establishment.
I, Raila Odinga, hereby submit my application to the people of Kenya for the position of president, which shall fall vacant later this year. I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that our country needs a social market economy, which is also christened as the third way. This is the modern social democracy. It is a system best suited to achieving faster socio-economic development and equitable distribution of the fruits of our labor.
But not all stayed the course. Uhuru Kenyatta, once part of the alliance, broke ranks in 2006.
Nikukumbushe ya kwamba hata wewe ulikuwa life member wetu wa chama hii yetu ya KANU.
Throwing his support behind President Mwai Kibaki's re-election bid.
Na mimi sikufikiria KANU watakuja tufanye kazi pamoja, na ninawaomba tafadhali, nawaomba kura yenu tafadhali. Thank you sana. Asante. Asante sana. Asante sana.
Then, just months before the polls, Kalonzo Musyoka followed suit, citing friction within Odinga's inner circle. Their departures sent shockwaves through the party, reshaping the battlefield in one of Kenya's most contentious elections. In the dramatic political twist, Kalonzo, through his lawyer Dan Manzo, secured control of the original ODM Kenya party, leaving Raila Odinga and his allies in a precarious position. But fate had another card to play. A shrewd move by lawyer Mugambi Imanyara saw the registration of a separate party, ODM, one that he will soon hand over to the Lang'ata MP, giving Odinga's camp a new lease of political life. December 27th, 2007, a momentous day in Kenya's history, a country at the crossroads of hope and turmoil. The stakes, the presidency of a nation on the rise.
There was an element of surprise that Kenyans were ready to embrace him to that point and to that level, especially after the Pentagon embraced him.
But in the days to come, what was meant to be a democratic exercise would unravel into one of the darkest chapters in Kenya's history. The contest between Raila Odinga, the leader of the Orange Democratic Movement, and incumbent President Mwai Kibaki was fierce. The 2002 public goodwill extended to Kibaki had faded. The stakes were unprecedented.
As ballots were counted, early results indicated a commanding lead for Raila Odinga. But something changed.
Most of the voting went on quite well in a lot of the polling stations across the nation. But when it came to the transmission of the results, that's where the problems, started.
Results started trickling in an unusual pace. The tallying process was marred by delays, inconsistencies, and missing figures.
And some of them were done at the local level between polling stations and constituency centers or other regional centers, or as they were being transmitted to Kenyatta International Conference.
He had the best chance then. All of us were in ODM. I was in ODM. He had nearly the whole country, Rift Valley, Western, Coast, Nyanza, the whole of the Muslim and the pastoralist area.
That Kivuitu man, the one who was saying the results are being cooked somewhere. And he made a very good statement that the results are being cooked somewhere. It was so bad to come out of him, but he made it. So he knew it was being cooked. We stood there kidogo. We didn't have space on the other side. So some of us were standing behind the electoral body. Me, I was next to Kivuitu and another ambassador Tumwa. I was standing behind the two. I was whispering to Chuck Tumwa, "You are a fine man. Give us fine results. Even if the fine results are us losing, so long as they are fine."
And we knew what was going on. They were determined. They knew they've lost. They knew they will use the exercise of the police and they will shut us down.
Then all of a sudden, 2 columns of TSU started coming from my right and then doing a funnel. And then the electoral body officials, members, commissioners, were beckoned to stand up. And then they were told to walk. Then they walked through the 2 lines. One line on this side, another line on this side. They walked through. And they were escorted as such up to the upper room. After that was done, we were told to vacate KICC. And they were ready to beat us up. So we vacated.
We have had so many conspiracies and plans of how to finish our leaders. So in our understanding, we were more concerned and worried about our presidential candidate.
Lights were switched off at the KICC, and what followed was the shutdown of independent broadcasters. The chairman of the then Electoral Commission, ECK, the late Samuel Kivuitu, was escorted by state police to State House, where then Chief Justice Evans Gisheru had already been summoned to conduct the sunset rituals.
Only KBC was left to go up. The entire press corps was violently pushed out because they tried to resist. But ourselves, we didn't resist. We just walk away to go and wait for the results at the Pentagon House. But they were flushed out by force. I even remember some of them were injured and some of their equipment was spoiled.
The antagonistic situation that could not be managed by government of the day at that time will tell you that Raila somehow had good numbers. If he didn't win, as people could want to claim, but he had good numbers that can convince someone that Raila won.
Look at the number of MPs we got. Look at the number of regions that supported Raila Odinga. Almost the entire country.
At that time, Kenyans eagerly waited for Kivuitu's voice.
We didn't take long. At Pentagon House, watching those screens we had fixed up there. The announcement came. Kivuitu announcing the winner is Mwai Kibaki. The entire Pentagon House was into mourning. They simply broke down. Some of them even collapsed. I mean, I remember I had to be involved in first aid on some of them because that was the last thing to expect. That was the last thing to expect because that election was won by the orange team.
How was Raila then, I think, when the results were announced?
He simply stood up, walked into his car, went away. The one who, I mean, a large number, I don't want to mention the guys who broke, but they broke down. Yeah. William Ruto, again, also walked away. Henry Koskei walked away. So I was left, if I may say now on my part, I was left with Ruth Odinga to kind of pacify people, comfort people. We took time. Some of them were crying profusely. We took time to ask them, there is a future, there is hope.
So the moment you are not respecting that procedure and the tenets of democracy, where you have time to swear in the president, where you have also time to do all those state decorations until the time the president is sworn in, of course it casts doubt. And of course the speculation has remained up to today, even in Raila supporters, that Raila won in 2007. But of course, you know, the ultimate decision lied with the IEBC at that time.
We thought Kivuitu was in charge as chairman, only to realize that later that I think the pressure was too much, and maybe one would understand dealing with an incumbent is not easy. He has the instruments of power. He can intimidate, blackmail, and frustrate you into submission. And probably Kivuitu cracked at one point. He was not strong enough to hold his ground.
Within minutes and amid the fast-setting nightfall, a hurried swearing-in ceremony was held at State House.
Nitaihifadhi, nitailinda na kuitetea katiba ya Kenya kwa mujibu wa sheria iliyowekwa. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu unisaidie.
The opposition cried fall. What followed was a descent into chaos. Across the country, demonstrations turned violent.
Ethnic tensions boiled over. Neighbors turned against each other. The police cracked down with force. Over 1,100 people lost their lives. More than 600,000 others were displaced.
This youth attempts to barricade the road right in front of the officers with barbed wire. The police officers snap. Automatic gunfire rends the air. Tear gas canisters follow. Every so often.
That the results were irretrievably polluted. You, sir, both of you gentlemen, were wise to come to the conclusion to appoint IREC instead of trying to do a recount. That would be impossible. To put it bluntly, nobody will ever be able to say who won or who lost this election. It was simply too bad before any results got to the KICC.
Judge Kriegler was speaking English. That is his language.
Yeah.
In English, he was saying Kibaki did not win. In English. I'm not looking for anything. I'm just looking at language alone.
He didn't say who won, but
Yes.
he said at least there was no one who was to be
No,
declared the winner.
He was speaking English.
So in simple terms,
If somebody is declared a winner and you say you could not tell who won this election, you are saying the person who won did not win. But he was speaking English.
As Kenya teetered on the brink of collapse, the world took notice. The African Union, led by former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, stepped in. Weeks of negotiations ensued.
We think that we will arrive at an acceptable solution that will help to deal with the crisis that we're having right now.
After grueling talks, an agreement was reached. A grand coalition government would be formed. A historic handshake sealed the deal.
For the second time in Kenya's history, the country had a prime minister. Raila Odinga assumed the role, sharing power with his former rival. But the wounds of 2007 ran deep, and the coalition government faced challenges from the start. Unity in government was easier said than done. Decision-making became slow, and political rivalries persisted.
Sasa sisi tuko ndani ya serikali. Waziri mkuu hana habari ati rais kesa atakwenda kupeana district pale. Anapeana tu peke yake. Waziri mkuu anakuja kwa sherehe kubwa kama na hii ya serikali, PC hakuna. Unaambia PC ameenda Nairobi. Kama Kibaki alikuwa anakuja hapa, PC angeweza kwanza kuja kwa hapa. Na angewekewa sana namna hii bila hata choo. Angewekewa. Alafu na nusu kapeti namna hii. Nusu mkeka.
Remember when riders were sent to Pentagon House and the riders were given to Raila Odinga and they escorted Raila Odinga to Harambee House. Unfortunately, fortunately, I was in that car. I was with Raila Odinga in the car. And we came out to Harambee House. Unfortunately, we didn't have a formal appointment with President Kibaki. When we reached there, Kibaki refused to see us. I told Raila Odinga, maybe we don't deserve to be given the riders before the deal. But Raila Odinga felt he was entitled to those riders. I started becoming disappointed because it was not about riders that we fight to be in leadership. It was about the people of Kenya. From that time, we knew we had a raw deal.
If he was focused on power, then there would have been no deal, because the position that we took at the beginning was that we had won the elections and Raila should be declared the President of the Republic of Kenya. And the worst scenario for us was a repeat election. Worst because we only two scenarios. Raila's announced, and our second option was that we should go back for elections. It was necessary to go into that deal because the entire clout of the international community, either as expressed through the African Union, the United Nations, and the United States of America, European Union, all of them wanted Raila, to accept a deal.
But the Grand Coalition was not an easy marriage, complete with echoes of the MOU failure 5 years earlier as President Kibaki held on to key ministries.
If Kibaki and the PNU behaved properly and accepted the terms and the position of the Prime Minister as set out in the law and in the Constitution, things would have gone a different direction. Kenya would never had a situation where an election still becomes a problem.
Despite the wrangles, the Grand Coalition government went on to deliver growth and significant political developments, including the promulgation of what was considered the most progressive constitution in 2010.
Raila has been at the forefront of the fight for democratic space in this country and of the search for a new constitution. So it goes without saying that his contribution is written all over the place. His footprints are all over the place. You can't talk about the Constitution of Kenya without talking about Raila. Because even if both he and Kibaki, as coalition partners, pushed for this constitution, a lot of the people on the Kibaki side were reluctant. Most prominent was Uhuru Kenyatta. These were reluctant. You remember that Michuki also. These guys, even Kibaki wasn't pushing.
With Kibaki heading into retirement, the Grand Coalition government acted as Raila's launching pad for the next election. But the dynamics were shifting, and none so dramatic than those occasioned by the International Criminal Court indictments of then Deputy Prime Minister Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila's one-time sidekick, William Ruto.
And I will say, by the way, that all these things, had Raila handled it properly, had Raila been a bit patient, Raila was going, we did not have a candidate. Raila was winning.
The ICC case and the eviction of Mau encroachers and the Mau forest further strained relations between Raila and Ruto, with Ruto allies accusing Raila of abandoning Ruto at the hour of need.
He doesn't, at the same time, he doesn't keep friends and allies. When he became the Prime Minister, he started again eating into his allies. So he lost William Ruto, he lost Charity Ngilu, he lost Aden Duale, he lost Charles Keter, he lost Najib Balala, he lost Musalia Mudavadi. So again, he came back to where he was in 2002 as NDP.
People join hands during elections for various reasons. Of course, the main reason is to get to power, and there are various expectations as they join different coalitions or join hands with different people.
Every politician, me included, we join politics to form government. Nobody joins politics to be in the opposition. So when we joined Raila Odinga, led by William Ruto, many of us, we wanted to form government. So we got half government. But in that half government, Raila Odinga and some of his close allies started undermining William Ruto and preferred Musalia Mudavadi.
Immediately after 2007 general election, I think the people who wanted to stop Raila through whichever means immediately embarked on a mission to disorganize ODM. And I will tell you that disorganization was so intense and so well-resourced. I remember during those days we were being told if you wanted an envelope, it was usually 100,000 every weekend. There was a place where you would go to pick it. And the main aim was to disorganize ODM.
And by the time the elections were staged in 2013, ODM's Pentagon was no more. Ruto, Ngilu and Najib Balala teamed up with Uhuru Kenyatta to form the Jubilee Coalition. Musalia Mudavadi vied for the presidency on a UDF ticket, and Raila Odinga found warmth in the CORD coalition together with former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka and Ford Kenya leader Moses Wetangula.
I'm very confident that I will be able to win in first round, not a rerun by the look of things, because the people of this country desire change and they see me as representing change from the status quo, which will enable them to realize their dreams.
Despite a fervent campaign, Odinga was defeated by Uhuru Kenyatta.
They have committed criminal acts. Most of them actually belong to the jail. Very much. Thank you.
Alleging electoral malpractice, Odinga challenged the results, but the Supreme Court upheld Kenyatta's victory.
In full realization of the high calling,
I assume as President of the Republic of Kenya.
I assume as President of the Republic of Kenya.
For him to contest all the time, I think he's always driven with this resilience attributes that there is always another chance. There is always another chance, but that chance never comes. So in that regards, then you would give him benefit of the doubt. That is a fella who, on one side, he has always wanted to demonstrate his value system by clinching the Kenyan presidency. But on the other side, he has always become the victim of differentialization of electoral management in this country.
Accepting the verdict by the apex court, the former premier became Kenyatta's biggest critic.
Hasira yangu ni ya huyo kijana anaitwa Uhuru Kenyatta na Ruto yake.
Kwa hivyo wewe na Ruto wako jitayarisheni, maana tunakuja. Ni kweli, si kweli? Na unajua Mugambe ametolewa na jeshi, na yeye Uhuru atatolewa na wananchi. Raila tibim! Kalonzo tibim!
Tuliona Mungiki wakipewa mapini, wametuattack with primitive weapons. We are saying no, we don't want war in Kenya. We want proper leadership in the Republic of Kenya.
He criticized the Jubilee administration of presiding over rampant corruption, mismanagement of public funds, ethnicity, abuse of office, and a ballooning public debt.
Sisi tukishika hatamu ya utawala, hiyo kana tunasema ndani ya siku 90 gharama ya maisha itarudi chini, bei ya unga itarudi chini, bei ya sukari itarudi chini, bei ya maziwa itarudi chini, kodi ya nyumba itarudi chini.
The 2017 elections marked a pivotal moment. Odinga, now at the helm of the National Super Alliance, NASA, that also included Kalonzo Musyoka, Moses Wetangula, Musalia Mudavadi, and Isaac Ruto, faced off against incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto.
Nyeri, mutakubali kutupigia kura na kujitokeza? Mutakubali kupiga kura na kujitokeza?
The initial results declared Kenyatta the winner, but widespread claims of irregularities led the Supreme Court to annul the election, a first in African history.
Maraga na watu yake hao wakora hao wamesema ati basi hiyo uchaguzi upotee. Si ndivyo wamesema? Sasa mimi sana sio rais mtarajiwa. Mimi ni rais ambao amekalia kiti. Maraga ajue ya kwamba sasa anadeal na rais ambaye amekalia kiti.
Citing lack of electoral reforms, Odinga withdrew from the rerun.
I might well be the end of the ballot as a means of instituting a government in Kenya.
Effectively handing victory to Kenyatta.
Kuna wale wanafikiria ya kwamba sasa tumebabaika ati tutaenda serikali ya nusu mkate.
nataka niseme mchana kwa mchana, hakuna serikali ya nusu mkate. Hakuna serikali ya nusu mkate. Musema kweli ni debe. Musema kweli ni debe. Musema kweli ni debe. Musema kweli ni debe.
Uamuzi ulifanyika. If they don't want elections on the 17th of August, the swearing in of Uhuru Kenyatta should go on, because already the people of Kenya made that decision on 8th of August.
Tuko tayari within 60 days. Uhuru Kenyatta, in full realization
of the high calling I assume as President of the Republic of Kenya.
I assume as President.
Hiyo uchaguzi wa tarehe 26 Oktoba ni bandia. Hatutambui. Kwa hivyo hatua ya kwanza tunasema Uhuru Kenyatta sio rais wa Kenya.
However, tensions escalated.
Wakatisha. Tulisema namna hiyo.
Culminating in Odinga's self-inauguration as the people's president on January 30th, 2018. This bold move sent shockwaves through the nation. Within hours of oath-taking, the Kenyan government moved swiftly. Television stations that broadcasted the event were shut down. And key opposition figures found themselves targeted.
The government viewed Odinga's swearing in as a direct challenge to Uhuru Kenyatta's presidency. The crackdown was meant to send a strong message that this was treasonous.
They have just been detaining me in Comunicado illegally with my lawyers.
What are the reasons or concerns?
There is no reason.
Miguna, a key figure in Raila's mock inauguration, was forcefully deported to Canada.
It says a Kenyan citizen has a right to come in and leave as he or she wishes. And that's what I'm doing.
Others within the National Super Alliance, NASA, like Roraka MP Tom Kajwang, found themselves on the run or facing legal battles. As tensions soared, the opposition through the National Resistance Movement, NRM, called for economic boycotts and further demonstrations. The country seemed poised for prolonged unrest. But in a surprising turn of events, Odinga and Kenyatta reconciled through the symbolic handshake.
We are all sailing in this one ship. We must come together to scoop out the water that has been seeping, or we shall capsize, so that we can build together a united, harmonious, stable nation where no individual feels left out or left behind.
He's the same man, Omolo Kijana, God rest his soul. He said, there are those who love Raila so badly and he talks about Raila mania. And there are those who fear him so much, and he talked of Raila phobia. You see, let me tell you something about Raila. Even people who hate Raila, who don't like him, who can never vote for him, they hate themselves at the moment they find themselves admiring him. I've seen it. People who come from regions like Mount Kenya and others who really hate Raila will do anything to remove Raila from the political scene, find themselves occasionally admiring the man, and they hate themselves for that.
This gesture aimed to heal a divided nation, but inadvertently sidelined Deputy President William Ruto, sowing seeds of discord within the ruling party.
The handshake was a double-edged sword. While it promoted national unity, it marginalized William Ruto, leading to a rift that would later define Kenya's political trajectory.
The handshake birthed the Building Bridges Initiative, a constitutional amendment project aimed at addressing historical injustices and promoting inclusivity.
This process must not address the divide between the politicians only. It must address the divide, the huge divide between the haves and the have-nots.
Want to see a new Kenya, and out of this a new Kenya is going to emerge. Kenya that we all want to see. We want to see all the people of Kenya united, working together as one people.
And I appeal especially to the political class. Don't divide these people, they don't deserve it. We are here talking about masilahi yao. We are here talking about their peace.
However, in 2022, the Supreme Court declared the BBI unconstitutional, halting its progress.
Mimi namwomba tu rais kitu moja. My friend, tafadhali, hata kama hutaki kuniunga mkono, na kuomba tu kitu kimoja. Wewe simama kando, waachia mimi huyu mtu ya kitendawili. Nimutembeze aende nyumbani.
The 2022 elections saw William Ruto and Raila Odinga as the main contenders.
The election is a mere 3 days away. Make arrangements to vote on the 9th.
Ruto emerged victorious, but Odinga challenged the results, alleging electoral fraud. The Supreme Court dismissed the petition, and Odinga conceded, albeit reluctantly.
Na kwa sasa mheshimiwa signature, the oaths are then sealed.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, tumpongeze kwa makofi, tumpongeze His Excellency, the 5th President of the Republic.
I will protect
And that I'll protect
and
uphold
the sovereignty,
the sovereignty, integrity,
and dignity of the people of Kenya.
and the dignity of the people of Kenya.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Na ni dalili shahiri kwamba anakuwa amiri jeshi mkuu wa majeshi yote ya ulinzi ya Kenya.
The
the 5th President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, Honorable William Ruto. We have done well as a nation. We have placed the train in an increasingly challenging environment where democracy is consistently on trial.
Like every other contest, an election has winners and losers. But of course, there are factors that will make you win, and there are factors that will make you lose. So to me, I have said that the primary reason that Baba is not the president today was that he was betrayed by people he trusted, and as a result of that betrayal, he did not safeguard his votes. So by failing to safeguard your votes in this country, knowing that IEBC is what it has been, we have we have seen even the Supreme Court indicting IEBC for electoral malpractices. So in this country, if you don't protect your votes, and if you do not have a very strong command center, as a presidential candidate, you cannot win an election.
Kama wanaazimio tumesema mpaka Kenya inuke, bei ya maisha irudi chini, bei ya unga irudi chini. Mko tayari? Vita imeanza, sawa sawa, haitaisha mpaka Wakenya wapate haki yao. Mko tayari? Mko tayari?
We have no exceptions on respect for the rule of law, and we also don't have exceptions on protection of property or lives. Everybody must respect the rule of law, and everybody is entitled to the protection of their property and of their assets and of their lives by the government of Kenya.
In 2024, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua faced allegations of corruption and abuse of office, leading to his impeachment. The impeachment paved the way for unexpected alliances. On March 7th, 2025, President Ruto and Raila Odinga signed a pact to collaborate on critical government policies. While both leaders emphasized that this was not a political merger, critics viewed it as a move to stifle the opposition.
Tumesema tunataka kuunganisha Wakenya wote wawe kama kitu kimoja, ili vijana waweze kupata ajira, gharama maisha irudi chini, bei ya unga irudi chini, kodi ya nyumba irudi chini, sawa sawa, na matibabu vile vile imarishwe.
Leo ni ile siku ya kumalizana na ukabila, kumalizana na chuki, kuondoa ubaguzi na kuunganisha Wakenya wote.
Raila Odinga's political odyssey from 1992 to 2025 reflects the complexities of Kenyan politics, a dance of rivalry, reconciliation, and realignments. My name is Enoch Sikoli, and I am the Kenyan historian.
Tulete jamii zote za Kenya pamoja.